Chaim Brook here again, taking you on a historical journey through the orchards, rivers, synagogues, and cobblestone town squares of our Jewish homeland, Israel. Today I'd like to focus on the history of Hasidic Jews in Israel, and especially the connection of Chabad Hasidim with the Holy Land. But first, some background. In the year 69 of the Common Era, the Roman legions, under the rule of Nero, Vespasian, and finally Titus, destroyed the Holy Temple that had stood in Jerusalem for 420 years, having been built and completed by Zerubbabel and Yehoshua the high priest, along with the support of Haggai and Zechariah, aka Zechariah. When the Romans destroyed the temple, they brought bloodshed, famine, disease, and utter devastation as they besieged Jerusalem in advance of their onslaught, resulting in the untimely deaths of over 1 million Jews. Yet despite the horror, despite never having a lengthy moment of tranquility in the over 1900 years since the destruction, a remnant of Jews always remained in the Holy Land. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai still oversaw the Torah-filled study halls in Yavna until his passing in the year 74. The Sanhedrin, the supreme religious authority, despite being exiled from the Temple Mount, continued to operate from Usha in the Galilee, and later in the year 86 moved to Tiberias near the Kinneret. In the year 133, Bar Kokhba, who was believed by many to be the Messiah, led a revolt against the Romans, but it failed, resulting in the horrible deaths of over 580,000 Jews. In the year 189, Rabbi Judah the Prince completed the transcription of the Mishnah while living in Israel. In the year 235, Rabbi Yochanan, not to be confused with Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, established a study hall in Tiberias and started Yarchi Kala, a biannual gathering before Rosh Hashanah and before Passover, where scholarly Jews would gather to discuss Torah ideas. In the year 190, Rabbi Ami succeeded Rabbi Yochanan as the lead Torah authority in Israel. So while much of Jewry was dispersed at this point, Jews and Judaism still remained alive in the Holy Land, being led by sages like Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, and Hillel. All this despite the ruthless attacks on our people by wicked governors, including the Roman ruler Gallus in 351. It was Hillel II who established the Jewish calendar while living in Israel in 361. In 429, Rabbi Gamliel VI passed away, and the Roman emperor outlawed the office of the Nasi, the Jewish leader of Israel, making religious leadership and spiritual activity punishable by death. In 614, after the Persians captured Israel from the Byzantines, the Jews were allowed back into their capital city of Jerusalem after 500 years of being banned from our holiest city. But this respite from terror only lasted 15 years because the Byzantines reconquered Jerusalem and slaughtered many Jews and banned them again from the holy city. In 637, a new religion called Islam came about, and within a very short time, less than 5 years, they managed strategically and ruthlessly to conquer Babylonia from the Persians, Israel from the Byzantines, as well as Syria, Egypt, North Africa, and Spain. It was in 661 that the new Caliph of Jerusalem built a large wooden mosque on the site of the Holy Temple, almost 1,500 years after Solomon built the first temple on that holy site. All along, whenever possible, Jews came home to their homeland. The yearning never stopped. The dream of next year in Jerusalem was in our hearts and our prayers always. One example would be Shlomo Bar Chizdai, who in the year 755 left Iraq and settled in the Holy Land. The next 150 years were extremely hard for any Jew in Israel, as the Muslim rulers made it close to impossible to survive as a Jew. The various conquerors believed that if they removed the Jewish artifacts like the Romans did, taking them to the Vatican, placing a mosque on the Temple Mount like the Muslims did, or destroying synagogues like the Byzantines did, they'd extinguish our yearning for the Holy Land. But they made a big mistake, because we never stopped. Even during the harshness of the Crusades, when inspired by the Pope, Christians rid Israel of the Muslim leadership and claimed Jerusalem as their Christian kingdom, we never stopped dreaming of Eretz Yisrael, and Israel was, is, and will always be central to Jewish life. Whether Maimonides the Rambam visiting in 1165, Reb Shimshon of Chance, France, a Toseftas commentator on the Talmud, emigrating home to Israel in 1187, 300 French Talmudic scholars in 1211, Rabbi Yechiel of Paris in 1260, the famous Nachmanides renewing Jewish life in Jerusalem in 1267, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yosef, author of Kaftor V'Perach in 1306, Reb Shem Tov ben Avram Ibn Gaon, author of Migdal Oz in 1336, Reb Avadia Bar Tanura in 1488, the Radvaz in Tzfat in 1514, Reb Yosef Karo in 1536, the Holy Arizal, Reb Isaac Luria in 1553, the Holy Shalah, my wife Chavi's grandfather in 1621, Rabbi Yisrael Najara, chief rabbi of Gaza in 1625, Rabbi Yehuda Chassid in 1700, the Or HaChaim HaKadosh in 1741, Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto in 1747. Despite the Crusades, despite the Caliphates, despite the blood libels in the Dark Ages, we never stopped. Our bodies may have been in other places by force, but our hearts were always, always in Jerusalem. Now to the Hasidic movement. From day one, when the founder of Hasidism, Rabbi Israel Baal Shem Tov, revealed himself to Klal Yisrael, revolutionizing Jewry and bringing to light the Hasidic way of life, there was always a strong emphasis on the connection that each Jew has with Eretz Yisrael. Baal Shem Tov himself wanted to emigrate to Israel and journeyed towards the Holy Land, making it all the way to Istanbul with his daughter Adul. But he encountered too many obstacles, both practical and spiritual, and returned to Ukraine to continue his revival of Jewish life in Eastern Europe. The Baal Shem Tov's brother-in-law, Reb Gershon of Kitov, did manage to emigrate to Israel in 1747, making him the first known chassid to step foot in the Holy Land. And in 1765, following in Reb Gershon's footsteps, other prime disciples of the Baal Shem Tov, including Reb Mendel of Premishlan and Reb Nachman of Aradonka, settled in Tiberias. In 1777, students of Reb Dov Ber, the Mizritcher Maggid, including Reb Mendel of Vitebsk, Reb Yisrael of Polotsk, Reb Avram Kalisker, along with 300 Hasidim, embarked on a voyage to Israel. Their colleague, Reb Shneur Zalman Baruchovich of Liadi, the Baal HaTanya, founder of the Chabad Hasidic movement, was to join them as well, but was tasked to lead the Hasidic movement to Belarus and White Russia, which he accepted despite his great yearning to move with them to the Holy Land. After departing from Crimea on the Black Sea, one of their boats capsized, killing many of the Chassidim en route to Israel. But the survivors continued their journey home and settled in the mountainous city of Tzfat, the capital of the Galilee. Other Hasidic rabbis and students emigrated to Israel in the following decades, and they all settled mostly in northern Israel. Life in Israel wasn't peachy. There was always struggles, including financial challenges. So the Hasidic Jews living in Israel depended strongly on the Hasidic leaders in Europe, led by Reb Baruch of Mezhebush, Reb Yitzchak of Barditchev, and most notably the Baal HaTanya himself, to send them the needed support. In 1788, the Baal HaTanya founded Kol Chabad, an institution that still operates to this very day and spares no effort to take care of our Jewish brothers and sisters in the Holy Land. It was such a big effort that when the forces who opposed Hasidism sought to undermine the Alter Rebbe, they informed on him to the Tsar's government, telling them that he's sending money to the Turks, who were arch enemies of the Tsar at the time. Of course, he wasn't sending money to the Turks, but to the Jews living under their rule. But that didn't stop the Tsarist regime from accusing him of the crime of supporting counter-revolutionary measures and having him arrested for it. Under the leadership of the second Chabad Rebbe of Dov Ber Shniuri, who led the movement from 1812 until his passing in 1827, Chabad became even more active in Israel, as Reb Dov Ber founded a Jewish community in Hebron, the city of our patriarchs and matriarchs, purchasing land, homes, and even founding the famed Avraham Avinu synagogue in Hebron, which is there until this very day. Many Hasidim from around Israel moved to Hebron to be part of this growing community. It was around this time that a group of Lithuanian Jews emigrated to Tzfat and established a community there, and also founded a synagogue named for their spiritual master, the Vilna Gaon. There were some Sephardic Jews who also moved to Israel this period, and the majority of Jews were living in Tzfat, Tiberias, Jerusalem, and Hebron. Due to the massive earthquake of 1837, which destroyed cities and towns from Beirut all the way to Tiberias, Tzfat experienced immense destruction, causing many of the survivors to move to Tiberias and other parts of the Holy Land. Keep in mind that until this very day, the highest point in Gaza is called Charet El Yahud, the Jewish neighborhood, because we have lived all across the length and breadth of Israel. Even during World War I, when due to famine, plague, unemployment, and uncertainty, many Jews left Israel to safer shores, Kol Chabad remained active in Hebron. It was the descendants of these Hasidic Jews who also founded the city of Petach Tikva in central Israel, and Chadera, whose founders included Reb Shneur Tzvi Schneerson and his sons Menachem Mendel and Levi Yitzchak. During the years of 1806 until 1929, the rabbis of Hebron were Chabad Hasidim, including Reb Shmuel Segal, Reb Shimon Menashe Chaikin, Reb Dober Efrat, and my very own paternal great-grandfather of Yehuda Leib Shol HaKoyen Libin, who served in Hebron until 1892. During the time of the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Chabad Rebbe, Reb Menachem Mendel, the community kept growing with the help of Moshe or Moses Montefiore and his wife Yehudis. The Chabad community was able to grow and flourish, and even after he passed away at 101 years old, he left enormous funds to allow for Jewish life to continue in the Holy Land after his passing. The Tzemach Tzedek also founded the shul, the synagogue that carries his name in the old city of Jerusalem. The fourth Rebbe of Shmuel and later his son, the fifth Rebbe of Shalom Dover, they grew Chabad's activities and involvement in the physical settlement and spiritual being of Jews in Israel. It was Reb Shalom Dover who purchased the Beis Romano Jewish Center in Hebron that was built in 1879 and turned it into the flourishing Torah's Emes Yeshiva. It was in the late 1800s and early 1900s that other large Hasidic dynasties followed in the footsteps of Chabad and started leaving Europe and setting up courts in the Holy Land. Slonim Hasidim in 1888, the Rachmatzivke Rebbe in 1926, the Belzer Hasidim in 1944, the Imri Emes, the Rebbe of Ger or Gur in 1940, and the inspiring Amshadavar Rebbe in 1946. In the summer of 1929, a short time before the Hebron massacre, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Shneris and the sixth Chabad Rebbe visited Israel for 2 weeks and brought inspiration, moral support, and incredible encouragement before heading back to Europe to tend to jury in the USSR. It was in the 30s and 40s that thousands more Hasidim made their way home to Israel, including my great-grandfather, Reb Sheol Brook, who I'm named for, who resided in Tel Aviv and later in Rishon LeZion, and my grandfather, my Sava, Reb Mendelbrook. Families like the Slonims, the Eliezerovs, the Goldschmidts, the Geraris, the Karasiks, and so many others were pioneers in bringing the Hasidic way of life to Israel, with many Hasidim being employed as farmers and ranchers, building the Israel that we know today. Over 100 years before Theodor Herzl and Max Nordau, observant Jews were settling in Israel, recognizing it as our ancient homeland. They weren't seeking a secular Zionism to replace Judaism. They were following the words of our Bible, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, that Torah, godly wisdom, will emanate forth from Zion, from Jerusalem. While Zionists from Liljenblum to Jabotinsky to Ben-Gurion sought to create a new reality with Zionism, each in their own way, we understood then and understand now that the glue that keeps the Jewish people together is our beautiful heritage, the wisdom of Torah, the holiness of mitzvahs, and it's our devotion to Judaism that keeps us eternally connected to Israel, to every inch of its holy land. When my mentor, the Lubavitcher Rebbe of righteous memory, accepted the mantle of Chabad Lubavitch leadership in 1950, he ensured that the physical establishment of homes, villages, and cities across Israel was on the top line of his agenda. From ensuring that Kfar Chabad and Shikun Chabad in Lud, both established by his father-in-law in the 40s, continues to grow and always possible, to establishing the Shikun Chabad in Yerushalayim and Nachlas Chabad in Kiryat Malachi in the 60s, to establishing Kiryat Chabad in Tzfat in the 70s, he was always laser focused on building Israel as a Jewish homeland, in encouraging his married students to serve in the IDF, to ensuring that every Jew in Israel has access to our incredible Jewish heritage, and to guiding Israeli politicians on the left and the right, from Rabin to Begin, Sharon to Netanyahu, Peres to Shamir, to do what's right for the people of Israel without allowing the pressure of superpowers with ulterior motives to sway them one way or the other. It was his beloved Chassidim, Rabbi Avram Parish, Rabbi Zhusha Golomovsky, Rabbi Pinya Altois, Rabbi Yisrael Leibov, Rabbi Shlenke Madanchik, Rabbi Yosel Bloy, Rabbi Label Kaplan, Rabbi Ephraim Wolf, Rabbi Berke Wolf, and so many others who spent the entirety of their lives making Israel what it is today. As Chabad Hasidim, we stand with Israel. We yearn for Mashiach when we will all be in Israel, and we are part and parcel of the fabric that makes Israel our warm, beautiful, and beloved homeland. Am Yisrael Chai.